Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another album review. My name is Christian Eschbach. Hey, everyone. Going to do an album review here. We're doing AC/DC Black Ice. You'll notice I keep kind of looking to the side. That's just because I've got the track listing up in front of me. I don't have the album in my hands. I'm sorry. It is currently upstairs, so I can't hold it and flash around like I normally would. Probably should have had it down here, but I'm busy working on Lego and redesigning my basement and rearranging my whole entire house. So you'll have to forgive me for this one. I'm gonna bang out a bunch of AC/DC albums. They're not gonna be in chronological order. I've already covered everything from the Bon Scott era, so I want to finish out the Brian Johnson era. Hoping to God the AC/DC doesn't release any more albums. The last one I've covered, but all right. So that being said, we're going to talk about 2008 Black Ice. This is an album I was not fond of when it first came out. When it comes to AC/DC, I'm not going to hide it. I love Bon Scott era, but not every album from the Bon Scott era is a gem to me either. I'm not a huge fan of Let There Be Rock. I'm not a huge fan of Power Rage. There's a lot of people that look when I say it and I go, what, really? But basically the rest of the Bon Scott era, I love. When it comes to Brian Johnson, we've got, you've got the early 80s, specifically Back in Black, For Those About to Rock, great albums. Then you get into that weird slump period. You come back with Razor's Edge, which was, I think probably their crowning achievement album outside of Back in Black from the Brian Johnson era. And that's because there was something different about that album. That was the one album that kind of got AC/DC kind of thrown a little bit into the metal category for a while, mostly because of the glam. Then once you got out of that, they pulled back more into their blues. I like when they were doing the thick, heavy production, when you got the Ballbreaker album, and the Stiff Upper Lip album. By the time we get to Black Ice in 2008, I think the biggest problem with this album is when it was released. This is an album that if this album had been released instead of Flick the Switch, instead of Fly on the Wall, instead of Blow Up Your Video, I think this album would have been even more well received than it was. I know a lot of people really kind of dug on this album, and then you had a few people that really kind of went with this album. I was one of the ones kind of in the category when it first came out. Rock and Roll Train was like the first lead-off single, which was okay. I still now, I don't mind it when the album, I think it kicks off the album beautifully, but I'm not a huge fan of the song overall. I loved War Machine when this album first came out. I still like War Machine. Outside of that, there's certain songs where I've kind of gotten into them a little more. I think if this album had come out prior to Raise Your Fist and Yell, or not Raise Your Fist and Yell, sorry, Razor's Edge, if it had come out prior to Razor's Edge, or if it had come out immediately after Razor's Edge. So if this had been the album to follow up Razor's Edge instead of Ballbreaker, I really think this album would have done significantly better because I think it would have followed nicer within the progression of the music at the time. But I think coming out as far as it did later, after they'd gone in that really thick, heavy production for a while, going really, really heavy on the blues for a while, this one feels like it's more of a step back where they're going a little more roxy, a little less bluesy, which kind of threw me off. So after Rock and Roll Train, which, starts off the album okay, but, it's kind of, whatever. I will admit there are way too many rockin' songs on here. You got Skies on Fire after that. I appreciate Skies on Fire a lot more now than I did when this album first came out. Big Jack was another one I think was a single as well. This one's like the most basic kind of song off here. But Big Jack is one of the reasons why I think this album should have come like after or right before Razor's Edge. And that's because Big Jack really kind of has a vibe to it that reminds me of like Money Talks. maybe one or two other songs off of the Razor's Edge album. Anything Goes to me is a forgettable song. War Machine, I love. War Machine is a fantastic tune. Smash and Grab, another one that really kind of, like, I'm going to be honest, Black Ice, in retrospect, after I've been going through doing all these reviews, and with AC/DC specifically doing them out of order and whatnot, Black Ice really feels like it's a left out over album from the Razor's Edge period. Because a lot of these songs I feel could have easily been interspersed without that. The difference is the production. The production on this definitely sounds a lot more rock and roll, like, pure kind of rock and roll. The downside is, though, it's got a thinner sound to it. It doesn't have that nice, thick, lush sound that some of the previous albums had. And that's something with the Razor's Edge album. It didn't have a thick, lush sound. It had a great, sharp, thin sound. But Razor's Edge was more metally, more dark, more shrapnel-like in a lot of ways. This one's just kind of more... I'm trying to remember if this was... I believe this would have been, right around the time they've been touring with the Stones. Or no, I think that was the album that came after this, was the album I Blame on the Stones. But definitely more of a rock Stones kind of sound. Spoiling for a Fight, decent enough tune while the album's playing. Wheels. There's a lot of songs about Wheels over the years, and I'm going to be honest, they're all basically kind of the same. Decibel. I like the way they do it, because the way he says decibel, it has a great sound to it where, with Brian Johnson's voice, it ends up coming more out like Jezebel. And I really kind of dig on that. It gives it a great kind of double entendre sounding kind of thing going on there, and I really dig on it. I really get into the song. Stormy Mayday. That one's not a bad tune when the album's playing, but when the album's not playing, I don't even think about it. She Likes Rock and Roll. Very typical for AC/DC kind of one. Money Made. Don't mind that one. Rock and Roll Dream. Forget about when the album's not playing. Rock All the Way, I forget about it when the album's not playing. And Black Ice, same thing. I forget about it when the album's not playing, which is a bit of a shame because it is the title track for the album, and it's not a bad track. Would I recommend going out and buying this album? If you are an AC/DC fan, or you've just gotten into AC/DC, sure, why not? Go for it. Depending on what you've already put in your collection, depends on how much you may or may not like this album. There are people who I could see really loving this album when it first came out, if that was the album they were exposed to a lot, but if they were exposed to other albums before this, like if you compare this to Razor's Edge, as I've done quite a few times, Razor's Edge is still the superior album of the two. But I think with this album, another problem is there's 15 tracks on the album. So if you took out one or two of the tracks at least, brought this down to a tighter, more rich album, I think it might have even been a better album, might have gone over a little better. Maybe taking it down to 12 songs, Remove Anything Goes. And maybe Rock and Roll Dream. Nah, Rock and Roll Dream wasn't that bad. I'd definitely take out Anything Goes. I would definitely take out Rockin' All the Way. And then you could pick a third track from there. Cut it down to a 12-track album, and I think it would have done better. I think it would have been tighter, and I think it would have gone over better with fans and critics alike. All the way around, though, I own the album because it's an AC/DC album, and I own everything from AC/DC, so, that's how that goes. Would I recommend everybody owns it? No. If you're not an AC/DC fan, I don't know if it's an album for you or not. It's definitely better, I would say, than, most of that mid-'80s stuff. It's definitely better than Blow Up Your Video, which will be in the next review coming. If I haven't done it already, I'll have to double check on that. It's definitely better than Flick the Switch, which I know I've already covered, and I know it's better than Fly on the Wall as well, which I'm pretty sure I've covered too. So yeah, that's where I stand on this album. Let me know what you guys think. That's what the comment section down below is for. Drop me a line. Let me know what you think there. Otherwise, folks, as always, I do thank you very much for watching. If you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, the bell for notifications, I'd really appreciate that. It helps me out, helps you out. Also, peace, love, take care, and I'll see you in the next review.